Thank you so much for joining us for this hour of code using Turtle Graphics with Tracy. If you're just joining us now, there should be a chat button at the bottom of the screen here, and go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where you are, what grade level you're in, what's your experience with code? We would love to hear from you. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this first day of Computer Science Education Week. Really exciting. My name is Linda, and I am a professional development specialist here at CodeHS. I'm also a former teacher, so I used to teach 7th grade all the way up to 12th grade computer science, and I'm joined by Bianca. She's our Director of Customer Success here at CodeHS. And she helps students make sure that they have everything they need to get started with CodeHS, teachers as well. And over here on the right, you're going to meet Tracy here in just a moment, but I want you to introduce yourself in the chat. And again, tell us where you're joining us from, what grade level you're in, and what experience you have with coding. Thank you so much. I see some students from Milwaukee. Excellent. Excited to have everyone here. All right. Excellent. Texas, thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to get started. So as we're continuing to hop in here, I'm going to go ahead and just go over a little bit of what we're going to be doing today. Right now, we're just introducing ourselves in the chat. I am going to introduce here in a moment our guest speaker, Andy Baer. He is on our engineering team here at CodeHS, and he's going to be sharing a little bit about his experience working here at CodeHS and cool stuff that he's created. And then we're going to jump right into Turtle Graphics and the lesson and activity for today. So really, really excited to share that with you. So first and foremost, this is a question you can answer in the chat. I wanted to talk a little bit about what is code used for. So think through, what do you think code is used for? And what have you particularly used code for? I know I wanted to talk a little bit about computer science, since it is Computer Science Education Week, and how coding is used in today's world. So oftentimes when we think of coding, we think of a way to maybe create some fun apps or programs, but coding is used in a lot of different disciplines. So things like business and medicine and law, even transportation and logistics, and of course, since you're here today, also in education. So, it really touches every industry and has revolutionized the way we learn and work. So I am excited to turn this over here to Andy.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Linda. Like Linda said, I'm a software developer at CodeHS. I am one of the people who actually makes the website. I am excited to talk about my experience coding, how I got to where I am now, and then show some of the things that I've created in CodeHS, some of the ways that I like to use code. But we're also going to make sure that if any of you or your students have any questions for me, a software developer, that you have the opportunity to ask those. So if you go ahead and use the Q&A feature, you can add some questions in, and then after I talk, we'll take some time to answer your questions. Those can be anything. It can be about what my job is like as a software developer, how I got here, really anything that you want to know from someone who works in the field. So I'm going to go ahead and share now. And what I'm going to be talking about is a little bit about my experience. And then I'm actually going to just show some of my favorite programs, hopefully some inspiration for the kind of things that you can work on today. So I am a software developer at CodeHS. I've been working at CodeHS for 4 years. I mostly work on the IDE, which is what we call the integrated developer environment. It's where you actually write code when you're on CodeHS. So it's where you type and then hit the run button. I actually came to coding from a kind of unconventional path. in high school, I was a musician and I went to school for music. I fell in love with coding after taking an elective and decided that I would probably rather spend my life coding than playing music. So I switched and now work full-time as a programmer. But it's not that uncommon for people to take a path like that into coding. A lot of you who are here might not think that you're going to want to be a computer scientist, and you don't have to be, but coding is used everywhere. Coding is used in so many different career fields. And so even myself as a musician saw the way that code could work with music, that I could use code, and that code influenced other things that I was doing. And that kind of led me to pursue computer science. So even if you're not that interested right now in coding, it's really important to learn these skills because coding is such an important part of everything that happens in the world. And anything you learn today in the art of code is going to be a useful skill for you at some point. Even if it's not the coding, it's working to create something. So that's kind of what I want to focus on now. My favorite part of coding is the ability to actually make art and make exciting and creative programs. So I wanted to show some examples of the kinds of programs you can make with code that kind of have a focus on that creative artistic side, because that's what I like to do more. So this is a program using Tracy the turtle. I just put this together. You'll be using Tracy today. This is a program that makes a little landscape scene with some mountains and some clouds. I have an additional one here, which is a little bit more advanced, which actually has trees and it has these clouds that move through the sky. This is the kind of thing that you'll be able to do later on once you learn about animation and you learn about stacking things and layers and stuff like that. There's other fun things you can do. Like here's a program I have where there's just spinning ghosts, but you can actually click and drag these. You can interact with these, right? And this program, doesn't serve a practical purpose, right? There's a lot of programs that are really useful for, they solve an existing problem, they help somebody accomplish something. But for me, it's really rewarding to just make a program that does an interesting thing. So here's another example. This is a program of just a bunch of wiggly circles. And if you move the mouse around, the circles wiggle behind it. And then I'm also really interested in video games and video game development. So I put together a program here that is actually it uses animation and physics and the sprite to create a little monster that you can actually run around on the screen and it hops around. And this is what you might use if you're working to develop video games. There's also an additional program here, which is a cool webcam filter I made. It might not work well on screen sharing, but actually there it is. So you can see how it creates a kind of artistic view of my face that's not quite, high resolution, but it has an interesting effect. And then finally, I want to show off one other one. This is a more advanced video game program that actually makes 3D graphics right in CodeHS. So there's so much that you can accomplish with coding, but there's also so many disciplines you can use coding in. I really like to make video games and cool graphical programs, things that are fun to interact with, but you can use coding for kind of anything that you're interested in. That could be music, it could be working towards social causes, it could be helping out with, a local, I don't know, if somebody in your class is running for class president, you can make a website for them. Coding is useful in a lot of different ways. And what we want to try to teach today is that you can find the way that you want to use coding in your life. So if we have any questions, I'm happy to answer those now. Questions about coding, about life as a software developer, about what you're going to be looking at today with Tracy, anything.
Andy, what is your favorite thing about computer science?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. So my favorite thing about computer science is that like I said, really like to use coding for creative things like making art or I think of them as like toys. And my favorite thing is that it's really easy and simple to just put something together, right? All the supplies that I need are right in front of me. It's just my laptop. I can put it in my backpack. I can take it somewhere else. So I have all the tools that I need for making something neat, but also for sharing it with other people, right? I was a musician for years, and the process of, playing music and sharing it is so much more complicated to me than the process of putting something together in CodeHS in the sandbox and sharing it with somebody. So that's what I like the most about computer science, is that for me, it's a really high leverage way to share things with the world and to show things.
All right. So what advice would you give, maybe to a student that's brand new to coding and maybe thinking, I want to pursue this maybe as a career in the future?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think are really important. The first is that you, make sure that you understand that coding is just a small part of what I do as a software developer. I'm a full-time software developer, and I spend probably a third of my time actually writing code. The rest of my time is communicating with other people on my team. It's writing documentation. It's being a good communicator, being, overall just the kind of person that other people would want to work with. So while code is important, there's other parts that you need to focus on as well. Being good at writing and being good at communicating, and in some ways being good at speaking with others. I think those are really valuable skills too. So absolutely learn coding, but there's a lot of other things that are important too. When it comes to learning coding, a lot of you are going to look at what you're doing today and think, how is drawing a shape going to be useful to what I want to do in the future as a coder, right? Some of you, like me, only want to make the shapes. It's rewarding to you that you're going to make a cool program today in Tracy, but for some of you who want to maybe work on an app or make a video game, if you have worked in Tracy, you're like, how does moving this turtle on the screen apply to that? And I think that that's the other important thing, is really learn these fundamentals now. And the things that you learn today in this hour of code are going to prepare you for your career as a programmer, regardless of whether you want to do coding for art or coding for music or coding to make a website. The things that you're learning in these hour of codes apply to any kind of coding that you do.
So what's your favorite thing you've ever coded?
My favorite thing I've ever coded. So I think the one I'm most proud of is the website codehs.com that all of you are going to work on today. Just because I think it's really cool that I got to make something that all of you use in the classroom. That's my favorite for that reason. I don't know if I have a favorite. I have so many programs that I've collected. We can try to share out some links. We also have a CodeHS showcase where we showcase some programs that we've made and also some programs that students like you have made. And I think that's a really great resource for kind of showing all the cool things that you can make.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe we can share that in the chat here in a moment. The student showcase would be great for everyone to see just the really cool things that you can do with code. Do you have any other questions for Andy? Drop them in the Q&A for us.
So we got the question, are there any competitions you like to compete in? So some of you might know this. There are some coding competitions out there. There's some called hackathons. These can be a couple of different things. Some are these 24-hour coding jams where you work nonstop. I've done some of those, but I found that was kind of exhausting. I've more recently participated in what's called code jams, where it's a little bit more relaxed, it's a little bit longer. And the idea is just to kind of develop a community around people who write code, where, there's some competition, but it's mostly just about participating with other people who code. So there's a couple that I really like. There's one called Proc Jam, which uses procedural generation as a coding, just a general idea for coding, where what you're doing is making programs that are slightly different every time you run them, where it uses randomness to make it so that your program kind of takes on a life of its own. So those are really fun. If you're really interested in that kind of thing, any of you out there, you can look up game jams. Is the general type of a lot of these, right? Where there'll be these competitions where you have a week to make a game. They tend to be really fun. They're competitions, but they're not super competitive, and they really just encourage working with other programmers. So Coding jams is the general term for that, like JAMS.
Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so
It's been
much.
really,
I hope all of
yeah.
you have a really great time working through Tracy today. It's really exciting, and the programs that you make are so fun and so cool. Yeah, I hope everyone has a really great CS Ed week, and now good.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started learning. So if you have a CodeHS account, now is a great time to go ahead and log into the account. We're going to give you some instructions, and then from there, if you're in the logged in version of CodeHS, you're going to be able to save your progress. So that's really the reason that it's best. If you don't have a CodeHS account, you can quickly make a student account, and we will get started here in just a moment. And I am going to introduce coding with Python here. So today's hour of code, we're going to learn the basics of programming in Python. So we're going to draw some shapes on the canvas, and you can see we're going to be using all the skills that we've learned or that we will learn today to create some letters. So I'm going to get us started with an introduction to the basics, and then you're going to have a chance to start coding. For now, you don't necessarily need to be anywhere or on any specific activity. We're going to give you those instructions in just a moment. But what we want you to do is follow along, and then at the end, you're going to get ample time to go ahead and work through this tutorial. So we're excited today. First of all, as we've been talking about programming, it's used interchangeably with the word coding. So coding is really just a way for us to give commands to the computer. And of course, we need to speak in the language that the computer knows. And so when we talk about a programming language like Python, Python is a type of language that the computer knows. So programming is really just a way for us to give commands and communicate in the language of its own. So this is Tracy. And Tracy is a turtle who understands commands in Python. So we're going to go ahead and give her those commands so that she can create those different shapes and letters that we're going to be working on today. So again, she knows the programming language of Python. And because Tracy speaks Python, we can talk a little bit about, why it's a great programming language. And it's a great programming language for beginners in particular because it's easy to pick up. It has pretty easy syntax. So you're going to see that in just a moment. But it's also widely used throughout the tech industry. So we have companies like Google and YouTube and Instagram and CodeHS that uses aspects of Python to code their program. So it's really, really cool. You're going to be learning in a very industry-wide programming language today. So this is what Tracy looks like, and here she is in her world, and you can see she shows up in the middle of her world, and she lives in a grid world where there is an intersecting X and Y axis, and that kind of determines where Tracy is. So Tracy always starts on 0, 0. So you can see there in the middle, she is at 0, 0. And what you want to do is once you start at that middle of the canvas there, you can also move within Tracy's world. So she's of course facing right to begin with. So what you're going to be able to do though is you're going to be able to use the X and Y axis to move Tracy to different locations on the canvas. So if we move on the x-axis, we move either negatively in the x direction, so that's to the left, or positively in the x direction, that's to the right, all the way up to 200. And the same goes for the y-axis. So we have positive 200 and negative 200. So all together, really, Tracy's world is about 400 by 400. So at each corner, we have different placements in Tracy's world. So we can go as far as negative 200 on the x-axis and positive 200 on the y-axis, as well as there on the x-axis, we can go negative 200, negative 200. we can also go positively or negatively here on those four corners. So you can see all together, the width of the canvas is going to be 400 pixels, and the height of the canvas will also be 400 pixels. So knowing that information will help us to be able to place Tracy where we want her in her world. And really, this is just a guide. You won't need to necessarily remember where all of these different placements are. Just know that she is working within a framework that starts at 0, 0 and can go positively or negatively by 200 to the left or right, up or down. And then she has the world that is 400 by 400. So what commands does she know? So the first command we're going to learn about is the forward command. So you write the word forward, and in parentheses, you're going to write a number that represents how far forward you want Tracy to go. So as a for instance, so if we put forward 100, that command will move Tracy forward by 100 pixels. So it turns out, though, that she's kind of picky. So you want to give the commands in a very specific way. And you can see on the screen here, I have a lowercase f for my forward commands. And then within my parentheses, I need to give a number. So you can see there on the arrow, it says forward 100. And there are no spaces, no capital letters, all lowercase. So if you use capital letters or forget the parentheses, Tracy won't really be able to understand where to go. So we're going to take a look at some more commands that she knows, but for now, remember, forward is a command that she knows. She also knows turn left and turn right, or in this case, left and right. She's able to turn by degrees, an amount of degrees that you give her. So we can use left and right to turn her. And when we use these commands, you need to put in 90 into the parentheses to help Tracy to move 90 degrees on the canvas, or really turn directly to the left or directly to the right. Now, you're going to learn in the future here that Tracy can actually turn more or even less degrees than just 90, but we're going to start with 90 degrees just so that we're able to learn the syntax and see what Tracy can do. Now, the last command, and this is a really, really important piece of our project today, is the last commands we're going to learn about is the pen up and pen down. So this controls the trail that Tracy leaves as she moves. So if we call the pen up command before Tracy moves, she won't leave a trail behind her. But if we want her to start leaving a trail again, and she has already put the pen up command, we need to go ahead and use the pen down command in order to have her start drawing a trail again. Now, an important note is that Tracy always starts with her pen down. So remember that it's the default for her to start moving and leaving a trail behind her. So you need to use the pen down command. You don't really need to use it at first, but you need to use pen up if you're going to remove that trail or have her move to a specific place where she's going to start drawing. So we're going to move ahead, and we're going to use these commands to write some code in the code editor. And we're going to go ahead and draw our very first letter. So you can see we're going to draw T for Tracy. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code editor. And once I'm done kind of demonstrating how to do it, I'm going to have you go ahead and log in and start working with Tracy. All right, so let's practice. The first thing that I want to do is I want to demonstrate how Tracy moves forward. So we can say, again, we just click in the code editor and we can type the word forward and draw 100 pixels and just see what Tracy does. So when I hit run, you can see Tracy moves forward by 100. Now, a couple of things about this programming environment. I'm so glad that Andy joined us because he is kind of the mastermind behind this IDE or integrated development environment. So you can see here on the right-hand side, this is where our output is for Tracy. You can also see here on the left-hand side, this is where you can actually put your code in. Now, a couple of things that are going on my screen, and you're going to see this on the example. These little green hashtagged lines are actually just comments. It's kind of like putting a sticky note on your code to give you some sort of information about what you need to do next. So we use this first portion here to practice and see Tracy move forward by 100. And then we can maybe show how Tracy can move left by 50. Well, let's move her left by 90 degrees. There we go. And notice that I'm running my code and doing a little bit of coding, run it again, doing a little bit of coding. The reason I want to do this is I just want to see how everything's working. So you can practice under these examples and kind of play around with the code as much as you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and erase these two commands, and then we can begin coding. So again, with our practice, remember there is syntax that you want to take into account. And when we go to code, you may be thinking, well, I don't really quite remember the commands that Tracy knows. Where can I find that information? If you go to the Docs tab here on the right-hand side, you're going to be able to see the commands. If you just click on commands, you're going to be able to see all the commands that Tracy knows. And you may even be able to move ahead a little bit and see some other things that she's able to do. So this is a really cool way for you to dive in and take a look at some other Tracy commands. Now, a couple of other things, I'm going to clear this here, but you can also debug right here within the IDE. So let's say I was to write the word forward, 100, and I run my code. And I realize, Tracy doesn't know forward. It's actually forward. All right, there we go. That's better. So you will be given some error codes or error messages if there is an issue with the code. And just go ahead and take a look at the line that it prompts you, and you'll be able to do a little bit of debugging right here within the IDE. So let's go ahead and have Tracy create her very first letter. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and notice that Tracy is here in the middle at 0, 0. And again, I want her to move down a bit so that she can create that letter T. So in order for her to move down to the bottom, I want to go ahead and set her up in a direction so that she faces downward, and then she can move to a place where she can create that T. So first thing I want to do is I want to turn her either to the right or to the left. So if you can put that into the comment section, what do you think it's going to be? Is it right or left that we need to turn in order for us to go down? All right, so remember, we're looking at it from Tracy's perspective. So if Tracy is facing right and she needs to go down on the canvas, she's probably going to need to turn right. So we're going to go ahead and hit right. And I'm writing the word right, and in parentheses, I am writing 90 degrees. There we go. All right, so Tracy has turned right. And I'm going to move down on the canvas. This time, this allows Tracy to set up the place where she's going to go ahead and write that letter T. Now, what I want to do is I want to pick up my pen at this point because I just want to move her to the point where she's going to begin the T. So I'm going to go ahead and use pen up. And the pen up command does not have anything within the parentheses because it's a simple command that just allows Tracy to pick up her pen. Next, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Now I'm going to move forward by 100 pixels. And you can see Tracy has moved down to the bottom. So as you can see, I'm kind of running my code little by little and making adjustments along the way. Now I want her to turn around completely. And since we can move either way, we can say left 90. If I run this program, you're going to see she's really only turned 90 degrees to the left. So I want to do this again. I'm going to go ahead and use my copy and paste, and I can actually run that program. She's turned completely around. There you go. So Tracy's moved to the bottom of the letter, and now she's ready to go all the way up to create that T. So we're going to draw a line for the T. Now, if I just go ahead and say, well, I want Tracy to move forward, maybe I want her to move forward 200 pixels, and I'm going to run. Now you can see the only problem is that I forgot my pen down command. So remember, she defaulted to have her pen up, have her pen down, but now that I put my pen up, in line 3, I need to put the pen back down. So I'm going to go ahead and run that again. This time, she does do that 200 pixel line. Excellent. So now we're going to move to the top, and we're going to move to the left side to create that half of the T on the left hand side. So what we need to do is I need to turn Tracy. I'm going to go ahead and turn her to the left, and she's going to turn 90 degrees. So again, just making those incremental changes to see how it's going. And then if I move forward, I want her to move 100 pixels. Let's see how that looks as I run it. Okay, excellent. Now what Tracy needs to do is she needs to turn around to make that left side or that right side of the T. And so to make that top line, I'm going to go ahead and turn her around. Now, if I turn left 90 degrees, oops, there we go. If I turn left 90 degrees, she's going to be pointing down. So I want to make sure I have 2 left commands to turn her 90 degrees. Now, some of you may have already figured out there are ways that we can optimize this code by actually combining these 2 commands here. So 2 times 90 is actually 180. So if I wanted to turn her a full 180, I could actually do that instead. So here we go. And she turned all the way around by doing 180 degrees. Now, that's moving ahead a little bit, but I know some of you are really smart and already figured that out. So I wanted to make sure to address it. There we go. She's turned around, and now she's gone 100 pixels here on line 14. So if she went forward 100 pixels, and in order for her to go past that line and make that right side of the T, she's going to have to move forward an extra 100. So I'm going to say forward 200. Once I run that program, you're going to see, there goes Tracy. Excellent. All right, so now we're ready to really create your first letter. Now, I wanted to show you my letter, and I was really excited about my letter L here. I was excited first and foremost that my letter my first name starts with an L, because it's just 2 simple perpendicular lines. However, if you have a letter maybe that starts with a K or an N or M, and you're wondering, how do I make those diagonal lines, play around a little bit maybe with the degrees and see what happens. You can also create these block letters. So try and use your 90-degree angles and create fun block letters. And you can even work ahead a little bit. So I'm going to give you time to decide what you'd like to do. So there is the opportunity, of course, to create a basic letter, and then you can move on to actually create a block letter if you'd like, in which Tracy can create a letter that is not just a simple line, but also kind of creates this 3D effect. So go ahead and work through the tutorial, and we're going to go ahead and drop that in. So I am going to show you now where to go ahead and start this activity. So the activity is called Draw Your First Letter. If you're not logged into your CodeHS account, I highly recommend that you log in. Otherwise, if you're not in the logged in version of CodeHS, you want to make sure to copy all of your code, and we're going to build on each step with the previous code. So you want to make sure to copy all of it. So for instance, if I was here on this first letter, I could copy all of this code by highlighting it, right-clicking it, and copying. Or I could hit Control-C on my keyboard and also be able to copy that. So again, because it will not save your progress, you want to make sure that you copy and paste your code in each step of the way, but that's only if you're not logged in. If you are logged in, it will save your progress. So go ahead and go to Hour of Code for Tracy the Turtle. So you're going to see codehs.com/HOC_turtle. And you can see that in the chat now. You'll be able to get started on creating your project. Now, a couple of logistics here that I wanted to address. If you have questions, there are two options for asking questions. First and foremost, of course, use the Zoom Q&A link at the very bottom, and we are here to answer your questions. We actually have an amazing team supporting us today, including Jessica and Claire from our marketing team, as well as Joni from our professional development team. So they are here to answer any questions that you have. Go ahead and pop it into that chat Q&A. And you can also ask your teacher if you're right there in the classroom. If you're logged in to your CodeHS account, we're going to be sharing out our link a little bit later. So if you'd like us to help specifically with a particular assignment, go ahead and share the link with us so that we can see what you're seeing. So where are we? And I'm going to leave this up on the screen here, but you are actually, if you log into that Hour of Code tutorial, you're going to see at the bottom that there is a starting point where it kind of skipped the video, and you can take a look at that second bubble there. That was the example with the letter T. But if you want to just get started right away, right down here where you see this starting point, it should be draw your first letter is the name of the assignment. Notice though that you can move on in the tutorial. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at the next example of the block letter, as well as create your own bubble letter, you can do that if you'd like to move ahead. But the commands are there on the left-hand side. You can see forward. Inside forward, you're going to put a number for the amount of pixels. Now, for left and right, you want to put a number as well, but this represents the amount or degrees that Tracy is going to turn. And then you have pen up and pen down. Pen up picks your pen up so that you're unable to draw a line and it moves Tracy to where she needs to go. Pen down will allow you to draw your lines. And you're going to start out by drawing your first letter in code. Remember that the canvas is 400 by 400 pixels. So if you make any of your forward commands larger than 400, it might be a little bit too big. So I'm going to go ahead and start our clock now. If there are any questions, please drop them into the Q&A. We'd love to hear from you and help you in whatever way we can. Okay, Ursula asked a really good question, so I want to address that one. She asked, how do you make a curve if you have like a letter D or a U? So I wanted to show you over here on the right-hand side, if you go to Docs, there is actually, if you go midway down, you can see drawing circles, and there is a quarter and a semicircle option. And try to play around a little bit with those options. I know it's a little bit advanced, especially if you're a brand new student, but we would, if you are excited to learn how to create curved letters, this drawing circles section, and you're going to see it right here under commands, is the next one is drawing circles in the docs tab. That's where you're going to be able to find that. All right, we're about halfway through and we just want to hear from you. How's it going? Go ahead and type it in the chat, Q&A. Let us know how it's going. All right. Hey, welcome back. And thank you so much for participating. I'm excited to share with you a couple of sample programs. But before I do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can share. So we're going to do a showcase here in just a moment. So if you're logged into CodeHS, you're going to be able to get what's called a share link. And I want you to go ahead and copy and paste that into the chat so that we can share out some of our programs. So if you come up here, you can see where I drew my letter. I can go up to more, and you're going to go down to where it says share. And you're going to be able to see a button that says get share link, I believe. And so it looks kind of like this, create share link. There it is. So make sure you go to more, share, and get the link. Once you grab that link there, you're going to be able to copy this into the chat for us. And we want to see what you created. So go ahead and paste your link into chat. We want to see your awesome programs here. I'm very excited to see that. Give you just a few minutes here to go ahead and pop those into the chat. And as you are waiting, I want to go ahead and show you Melissa's. She created an awesome program I wanted to share real quick. Here we go. All right, cool. So this is really cool because watch Tracy create angles other than 90 degrees. This is really awesome. So nice job creating Tracy with, it looks like she moved and turned about 135 degrees to the right and to be able to create those different angles. So very, very cool. Great use of geometry. I'm really, really excited about that program. Let's see, are there any others? Go ahead and share out your program with us. Again, you just have to go to more, share, and then create a share link so we can see your program. All right, cool. We have another letter. Hey, nicely done. Letter J. Wow. And used a semicircle. I am really impressed because this is the power of code. Once we get started, we're like, let's see what we can do. So I'm excited for to be able to go ahead and utilize the Docs tab and create something that we haven't even taught in this tutorial is really, really cool. So good. Nicely done. All right. Take just a few more minutes here. Thank you so, so much for joining us. We're down to our last 5 minutes. So if you have any additional questions or a program you want to share with us, would love to see what you've created today. Now, what's next is if you want to keep working through the hour of code, there are some really cool things you can do in addition to what we've learned today. So Melissa says she wants to attempt a lowercase m. Absolutely. The next part of this tutorial is actually going to create a bubble letter. So I am super excited to share my bubble letter here with you guys. So you can see it's going to look something like this. So in addition to Tracy creating a cool letter, she can also create bubble letters. And you can even move into creating a letter with colors. So if you'd like to, blue is my favorite color. So there goes Tracy creating a really cool blue letter L. Very cool. So keep working through the tutorial. You're going to see all of these pieces come together, and eventually you'll be able to create an awesome masterpiece like this very cool fancy letter A. This is one of our examples here. So feel free to play around. There is so much you can do. You saw Andy's programs. He created some cool mountain programs and some other really neat landscapes just using Tracy the turtle. So again, this is a great place to start. It's a great place to be able to really understand and get the foundations of coding, particularly in Python. So I'm excited to bring this to you today. Now, if you finish the tutorial and you want to share out your badge, please tag us. So go ahead and use hashtags hour of code or read write code. You can print your certificate, and you can certainly even complete another hour of code. It has that option there at the bottom, but you'll be able to print your certificate. You'll also get a badge, and please, please, please share that out with us. I'd love to see what you created. Okay, we've got another program here. I'm going to check out this awesome program. Okay. This is from Rebecca. Nicely done. Love this rainbow L. Awesome. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. Wow, that took a lot of different colors. Love it. So well done. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. So please, please, please keep coding, keep working. And I want to see those programs. Let's see. Ursula shared her program here. Let's check it out. Nice. Nicely done. She had two letters, not just one. Excellent job, Ursula. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us for this hour of code, and keep coding, keep working through different and learn maybe new programming languages and learn new facets of Python, or specifically turtle graphics with Tracy. And we would love to see what you created. Again, hashtag hour of code or hashtag read write code, and share with us what you've created. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks again.